So I'm here to talk about GIS, which is short for an acronym for, what is it, Geographic Information Systems? All right, so this is FMIgnite Starter. And everybody has addresses, right? How many of you guys have used like a zip code lookup tool in the past? Where you guys have like a table of zip codes you might download from USPS, and you try and fill in the state and the city. Sometimes it gets outdated. Well, that's kind of the old way of doing things, I think, and I'm here to demo kind of the new way of talking to the internet. Andy helped me out quite a bit. Say hi, Andy. But yeah, basically from what I could tell, oops, computers. Do I have to be on a specific Wi-Fi network? I'm on LumenFire Guest. Yeah, the cable fell out. Could not connect. Okay. So it's the old way. So there's kind of three components to making this all work really nicely, from my interpretation. So you type in an address and you type in minimum information. So like you might type in your street address and then tab down to your zip code or postal code, and that fills in the rest of your address for you. So that's called postal code lookup. Now when you have a complete address, it nice. All right, back to the address. So there's three parts to address lookups. There's postal code lookup, which completes your address. Now that you have a complete address, you do something called geocoding, which is getting latitude and longitude. And then once you have that, then you can get a static map to have on your layout. So I'm gonna walk through this a little bit here. So so typically what a user would do is they would tab into the street address 1 field, type something in, and then we want them to go to the zip code next. So if I'm gonna hit the button, I'm gonna replicate this. This is what a user might do. So then they tab back over to the city, and that's the postal code lookup and the geocoding and the static map generation happening all right there. So a big part of this is, let me show you the back end here. So in setup, we have fmFlare integrations and GIS mapping, and there's three chunks here, right? So there's postal code lookups. You can specify which services you want in the order. Some of these are free to use, and some require like account setup with an API key and all that stuff. These are optional actually too, but gives you control there. And then the geocoding, where you get the coordinates, is also, it's kind of similar, but here, this is kind of critical. Some of these services provide like an accuracy gauge where they're not quite sure if it's the 100% match. So you can set the score to be like 70%. And then of course the mapping, but so let's go back to contacts, and I want to demonstrate like this is kind of the weird thing I noticed with our address here. You can fill it in, but if I do Fridley, it's going to do some new geocoding, but it actually failed and didn't match the minimum 70% threshold. So if I go in here, I can show you this. Right now, this is at 90%, but that was with the Minneapolis address. But if I do a retry on this, it's going to give me like a 30% and move me over to Highway 65. So, and this is another issue we're working on. Andy's working on this feverishly right now. But the map doesn't always pop up nicely in the card window, and we're not sure exactly why yet. Just got to keep trying.
You have to open the card window on a blank layout and then move to the layout. If you open a web viewer straight into a card window, a lot of times it'll fail to load half the resources.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
There we go.
Move to a blank layout first, then load it.
So you open the card window on a layout that doesn't have a web viewer, and then you move it. You have to pause for a tenth of a second, and then move into
The cursed pause.
because it sometimes works.
Yep.
Slowly on the certification then.
Yeah, so anyway, that's really my demo. There's a lot of work that went into this, on the back end. Andy's a key part of this whole thing. But a lot of moving parts, and the whole point of this is to give somebody a usable map that they can play around with.
That doesn't break the Google terms of service.
Yeah, that was another part, because we had we had the zip code lookup table stuff, but then everybody did like the Google mapping, encouraged by FileMaker. Like, you create a new web viewer on the layout, and it's got the Google code right in there. So, but apparently that breaks Google's terms of service. So, what can you do?
I would be interested if somebody would reread those, because I don't think it is terms and services, and I think they might have changed it. However,
I don't
I
know.
will say this, that if you get a free access key, Google, I've run into this a lot, they will, if you have a free access key, they will give you the lowest priority on their API. And so a lot of times, sometimes it will fail to give you results, because they say you're over your access limit, when you're really not. So they meter their free keys.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But I think if you look, I think it's $500 for the lowest Google.
Like per year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you're doing there that would preclude, if you enter in a zip code of 55421, was there anything in how it's set up right now that would preclude you from having a drop down for cities, saying this zip code 55421 could be used for Fridley, Minneapolis,
It's a good idea.
dot, dot, dot?
You can pay us to build that for you.
I will double what I'm paying you now.
Yeah, so I don't know if anybody else has any questions, maybe hit me up afterwards. I don't know. Or Andy. He's a smart guy here. So.
So what is that service that does not violate the terms?
Well, there's several services. There's for the zip code lookups, there's Zipopotamus and then Nominatum. These are both free, I think. Nominatum is a free. Nominatum is actually completely free. But for geocoding, there's like census.gov, which is a U.S. service, obviously, and then these other ones. Bing is actually pretty robust too, I think. So
So this is all part of our pre-built fmFlare modules, and so the idea is that
right.
we do all the coding of these things, and there's actually fallback services if one doesn't work. So let's say you called and you wanted to get the zip code. Well, if it fails from one service to give you a result, it'll just go to the next service. And so the same thing with doing email sending. Let's say you were going to send an email via service like Mailgun. Let's say Mailgun comes back and says, I'm not available right now. Well, it'll try with the next service that you also have sent out, so that your web services are always going to work, and you don't have to reprogram it for each particular service because we've done all that work for you. You're calling an API, a meta API that's in FileMaker, saying send mail with these parameters using this service if you want to specify it. Otherwise, it'll use whatever service is set up and do it for you.
What he said. I'm done.